Hey everyone, and welcome. Get ready to look at language in a whole new way. We're about to dive into Biblical Hebrew, but not just as a language. We're going to explore the idea that its letters are more than just symbols, that they might just be the very blueprint of reality itself. So let's jump in.
So I want you to start with this question. Just let it sit in your mind for a bit. What if the words and the letters we use weren't just random sounds we came up with, but were actually the fundamental building blocks of the universe? It's a huge idea, right? And it's absolutely central to understanding the true depth of Biblical Hebrew.
But before we get into all that cosmic stuff, we gotta ground ourselves a little bit. See where this language actually comes from. Because just like people, languages have a family tree. They have relatives, ancestors, and a specific place in history.
Okay, so take a look at this. This chart kind of lays out Hebrew's deep, deep roots. It's part of this massive group called the Afro-Asiatic superfamily. And more specifically, it's in the Semitic family. Now, what that means is it's related to languages like Arabic and Aramaic. They're all cousins in a way. So understanding one can give you some serious clues about the others.
So, you might be asking, why bother with all this? Why not just read the Bible in English? Well, that's a great question. And it's because translation is more of an art than a science. And sometimes, the most important, the most crucial meanings can get completely lost along the way.
Let's look at a perfect example, probably one of the most famous commandments in the entire world. Thou shalt not kill. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But when you go back to the original Hebrew, something much more specific, much more profound pops out. The better translation is actually, thou shalt not murder. Okay, so here's the deal. The original Hebrew uses a very specific verb here, ratzah. And this word doesn't just mean any kind of killing. It specifically means an illegal, intentional, premeditated killing, what we call murder. This one little word choice completely changes the scope of the commandment. Suddenly, it allows for things like self-defense or killing in a just war, which the broader term kill would seem to forbid.
And that just blows the whole thing wide open, doesn't it? If a single word can change the meaning of something so fundamental, it really makes you wonder, what other deep ideas, what other crucial points are we missing out on simply because we're reading a translation?
And that question is the perfect gateway to the really mind-bending stuff. We're moving beyond just words now and into the very DNA of the language. This brings us to the most incredible aspect of Biblical Hebrew, the idea that its alphabet, or alephet, is something far, far more than just a set of letters.
I mean, just let this concept sink in for a second. The idea here isn't that letters describe creation, it's that they are the building blocks of creation. They're like the universe's source code. Each letter isn't just a sound, it's a cosmic force.
And how many of these cosmic building blocks are there? Just 22. That's it. Each one is thought to be its own unique channel for divine energy, with its own numerical value, its own secrets. Each one holds a little piece of the cosmic puzzle. Let's check out a few.
All right, let's start at the beginning with Aleph. It's the first letter, its number is 1, and it's all about the unity of God. And if you look at its shape, it's incredible. It has one part reaching up to the spiritual world, one part reaching down to our physical world, and a line in the middle holding it all together in perfect balance.
So there it is, Aleph, the silent, powerful starting point for everything. It represents that single, infinite source that all of creation flows from. Okay, so after the total unity of Aleph, we get Bet, the number 2. And right away, this brings duality into the picture. Now you have a creator and a creation, giver and receiver, light and dark. Its shape is like a house or a shelter, which symbolizes the physical world itself, a vessel built to hold the divine spirit.
And here's Bet. Fun fact, this is actually the very first letter spoken in the entire Torah, in the word Bereshit, in the beginning. It's literally creating a house for the story of creation to unfold in. Pretty cool, right?
All right, let's jump ahead a bit to the letter Shin. This one is all about fire, power, and transformation. Think of fire, it's not just about destruction. It's this incredible force that breaks things down, purifies them, and forges them into something totally new and stronger. That's Shin.
And you can really see it in its shape, right? It looks just like 3 flames reaching up. Shin is that active, dynamic, spiritual power that is constantly changing and remaking the physical world. It's the engine of change.
So you might be thinking this is all fascinating ancient history, a language that's just locked away in old scrolls. But you'd be wrong. Its story is far from over. Its legacy,
is very, very much alive. This timeline here tells just an incredible story of survival and rebirth. You see, it starts with biblical Hebrew, then it evolves into the language of scholars and religious texts. For centuries, nobody really spoke it on the street. And then, and this is one of the most amazing linguistic stories ever, it was brought back to life as a modern spoken language. And what's so wild is that modern Hebrew isn't some totally new thing. It was built right on top of that ancient foundation. It's got the same 22 mystical letters we just talked about, a ton of the same words, the same basic grammar. It carries all that deep history and that cosmic worldview right into the 21st century.
Which really leaves us with this incredible thought to chew on. We've barely scratched the surface of just one language. If this single alphabet can hold a worldview this deep, this idea of being a blueprint for the universe, just imagine what other secrets, what other maps of reality are hiding in plain sight within the grammar and letters of other ancient tongues all over the world.
What if I told you that some of the world's most influential texts have secrets hidden not in what they say, but in how they say it? What if the very letters and the structure of a language were actually designed to carry a much deeper meaning? This isn't just some linguistic puzzle. It's a journey into the way ancient thinkers saw the very structure of reality. Welcome to the hidden code of biblical Hebrew. We all know this one, right? It's one of the most famous commandments in the entire world, a real cornerstone of morality that shaped laws and ethics for thousands of years. It seems so simple, so black and white, a clear, absolute command that pretty much everyone understands. Well, this is where it gets really fascinating. What if that simple translation, the one we all have in our heads, is actually a bit of a simplification? What if a really crucial layer of meaning got, well, lost in translation when the original Hebrew was moved into English and other languages? Okay, so the key is all in one single powerful Hebrew word, tirza. Now, in English, we translate this as kill, but that's not quite right. Tirza actually comes from the root verb ratza, which doesn't just mean any taking of a life. It specifically means unlawful, premeditative murder. So the commandment is much more accurately, thou shalt not murder. This one small change opens up a whole world of nuance around things like self-defense or warfare, a distinction that's completely gone in the common translation. This one-word revelation, it just goes to show you that to really get what the text is saying, we can't just read the translation. We've got to go back to the beginning, back to the unique identity and the ancient origins of the Hebrew language itself. You see, Hebrew didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's part of the ancient and really influential Semitic language family. It shares deep roots with languages like Aramaic and Arabic. And this isn't just some historical factoid. It actually places Hebrew right at a crossroads of ancient civilizations and ideas, which helps shape its structure and its power. But in traditional Jewish thought, Hebrew is seen as something way more profound than just a way to communicate. It's seen as a divine tool, a sacred language whose 22 letters are the literal building blocks that God used to construct reality. So it's not just describing the world, it's forming it. So, if the letters are the building blocks of reality, what do those blocks actually mean? This is where the code really starts to open up. The Hebrew alphabet isn't just 22 letters that stand for sounds. Each one is a symbol, and it's packed with its own spiritual and conceptual meaning. Our journey into this code has to start, of course, with the very first letter, Aleph. And the first thing you need to know about it is it's silent. It represents that profound stillness before creation, the infinite potential that everything else comes from. But Aleph is so much more than just silence. It represents the number 1 not just as a number, but as a concept. It symbolizes the single, unified, infinite source of all being. Think of it as the divine starting point from which the entire universe just springs forth. It's a concept at the very heart of passages like the Shema Yisrael. The Lord our God, the Lord is one. So what comes after the absolute oneness of Aleph? Well, you get the second letter, Bet. And the logic here is just beautiful. If Aleph is the singular creator, then Bet is the creation itself. It's the house or the vessel that's built to hold that divine energy. With Bet, duality enters the picture. Creator and creation, heaven and earth, spirit and matter. And it's no coincidence that the very first word of the Bible, Bereshit, in the beginning, starts with the letter Bet, the house for creation. Okay, so we've seen the source, Aleph, and we've seen the vessel, Bet. But how do they connect? That brings us to another key letter, the 6th one, Wav. And with Wav, its meaning is right there in its shape. Seriously, the shape of Wav is its meaning. It's a vertical line, kind of like a hook or a peg, and it functions as a connector. It represents the link between that spiritual realm of Aleph and the physical world of Bet. It joins the divine with the material. The symbolism is literally embedded right into the script. And the code, believe it or not, gets even more intricate. It's not just about what the individual letters mean. The language has these unique grammatical rules that add even more layers of complexity and meaning. For example, 5 of the 22 Hebrew letters physically change their shape when they show up at the very end of a word. These are called sofit, or final letters. So here, the letter Kaf becomes final Kaf. This visual shift isn't just for decoration. It acts like a grammatical signpost, giving another layer of structure and clarity to the language. And the precision goes even deeper. For 6 specific letters, a tiny little dot placed inside, it's called a dagesh lene, completely changes how you say it. The letter Kaf without the dot makes a soft ch sound, like in the word loch. But if you add that dot, it becomes a hard k sound. A single dot can change the sound of an entire word, which just shows you how meticulously constructed this ancient code really is. So we've seen symbolic letters, precise grammatical rules. But you might be wondering, why does any of this matter today? Well, because understanding this code is the key. It's the key to unlocking the intended, powerful meaning of the original texts. Reading the texts in their original language gives us at least 3 huge things. First, accuracy, so we don't make that mistake of murder versus kill. Second, you get the cultural context, because even New Testament authors who were writing in Greek were often thinking with the Hebraic worldview. And finally, you get this incredible theological depth, where the words themselves start to reveal profound truths. Here's a perfect example of that theological depth. In English, the name Adam is, well, it's just a name. But in Hebrew, Adam comes directly from the word for earth or ground, which is Adamah. His very name tells the story of his origin, that he was formed from the dust of the ground. It's this profound layer of meaning that is completely, totally invisible when you read it in translation. So let's bring it all back to where we started. We saw how understanding just one word, tirza, completely reframed one of the most famous moral laws in all of history. It really makes you wonder, if one single word holds that much power, what other incredible ideas, connections, and truths are still just waiting to be discovered, hidden in plain sight inside this ancient code? Today, we're diving into an ancient language, one that's not only foundational to Western culture, but is said to hold the very secrets of creation itself. We're talking about biblical Hebrew. So let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the very heart of why this even matters. We've all heard the famous commandment, right? Thou shalt not kill. But what if I told you that's not exactly what it says? That a huge, critical piece of the meaning has been lost in translation for centuries. Okay, so take a look at this. In the original Hebrew, the phrase is lo tirza. Now that verb, ratza, is super specific. It doesn't just mean to kill in a general sense, no. It means to intentionally, premeditatively murder. So the commandment isn't this giant blanket ban on any and all killing. It's a very precise rule against murder. Just think about that. That one word completely changes the legal and moral landscape of the entire statement. So that begs the question, right? How do we get back to what it really said? Well, the key, of course, is the language itself, biblical Hebrew. And what's so fascinating is that it's seen as so much more than just a way to talk to each other. It's something way more profound. You see, in traditional Jewish thought, Hebrew isn't just a language that describes the world. It's the language that built the world. The idea is that the letters and the words, they're not just symbols. They're the actual building blocks of the universe, each one filled with its own kind of divine energy. It's like the source code for creation. And just to give you some context, let's look at where Hebrew fits in the grand scheme of things. It's part of the Semitic language family, which makes it a cousin to other really important ancient languages like Aramaic and Arabic. So you can see it comes from this incredibly rich, ancient linguistic neighborhood. And boy, does it have a long history. I mean, the language has changed over the centuries, for sure, but what we're really digging into today is its oldest form, Biblical Hebrew. We're talking about a language from over 3,000 years ago. And its real power? Well, that comes from its fundamental building blocks. To really get Hebrew, you have to start right here, with its alphabet, or alphabet. And you've got to understand, these aren't just letters like A, B, C. Nope. Each one is a universe of meaning packed into a single symbol. It's like this says, these 22 letters are seen as the literal building blocks of all creation. So they aren't just there to make sounds. They're thought of as cosmic ingredients, the actual elements God used to literally speak the universe into existence. So if you understand the letter, you're getting a key to understanding creation itself. So let's look at a couple of examples. First up, we have Aleph. It's the first letter. It represents the number 1. It's all about unity, the oneness of God, the infinite. It's seen as this silent spiritual spark that everything else comes from. Okay, so after the oneness of Aleph, you get Bet. And Bet literally means house. So you go from the infinite spirit to a container for that spirit. It represents the physical world, a vessel built to hold that divine spark. It's like creation needs a home, and Bet is that home. Or how about this one, Shin? I mean, just look at it. It looks like a flame, right? And that's exactly what it represents. Fire, transformation, change. It's about that divine power that can purify and change everything around it, but the fire itself stays the same. Pretty deep, huh? Okay, so we've got these letters and they're packed with all this incredible symbolic meaning. But how do you actually read this stuff? The mechanics of it are, believe it or not, just as cool as the symbolism. So, get this. The original written Hebrew had no vowels at all. It was just consonants. It's kind of like if you tried to read English like the quick brown fox. You, the reader, would have to supply all the vowel sounds from memory. You had to already know the language inside and out just to read it. That's exactly how it worked. So you're probably wondering, well, how on earth do we read it today then? Great question. Much, much later, we're talking centuries later, a group of scholars developed this brilliant system of little dots and dashes called Nikud. And you can seriously think of it like an ancient GPS for the text. They added these little marks above and below the letters to show you exactly which vowel sound goes where, preserving the correct pronunciation forever. Oh, and there's one more little curveball, especially for us English speakers. Everything's backward. You don't read from left to right, you read from right to left. You literally start at what we think of as the back of the book and work your way forward. It definitely takes some getting used to. All right, so we've looked at the letters, the history, how to read it, the whole shebang. But let's tie this all together. What's the point? Why does understanding this ancient code actually matter right now, today? Well, when it comes to the payoff for digging into biblical Hebrew, I think there are 3 really huge reasons. First off, you get a much deeper insight into the Old Testament. You get to skip the middleman of translation, like we saw with that kill versus murder thing, and go right to the original source. Secondly, it actually gives you a much richer context for the New Testament, because even though those books were written in Greek, the writers were thinking in Hebrew. Their whole worldview was shaped by this language. And finally, you realize that Hebrew isn't just a language used for theology, it's a language that is theology. Its very structure, the letters, the words, it's all built to talk about these huge, complex spiritual ideas in a way that, frankly, other languages just can't. So I'll leave you with this. We started this whole journey by looking at how a single word, just one word, could completely change our understanding of one of history's most famous commandments. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If that much meaning can be packed into one word, what other secrets, what other profound ideas are just sitting there waiting to be discovered in the original text?
Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling when you're watching a foreign film? Maybe it's French, maybe it's Japanese, and the subtitles are technically correct, but you just know you're missing something.
Oh yeah, the lost in translation moment.
Exactly. Like, the actors are cracking up at a joke, and the text at the bottom just says, "Hello, how are you?" You know you're not getting the full picture.
You're getting the data, but you're missing the flavor, the soul of it.
Right, the soul of it. Now, that is annoying when you're watching a movie, but imagine the text is in a screenplay. Imagine it's, I don't know, the foundational document of Western monotheism.
The stakes go up quite a bit.
They really do. What if the thing getting lost is a moral imperative? Or a hidden code that claims to explain how reality itself is constructed?
It's not just about cinema then, it's about theology.
It is. So today we are diving into something really special. We have a distance module on Biblical Hebrew from Holy Trinity University. And before you check out thinking, oh, great, a grammar lesson, just hold on.
Not at all. It's so much more.
Our mission today is to figure out why a language that is thousands of years old is still considered, the DNA of creation. We're going to look at why learning this ancient code might completely change the way you read the Old Testament.
And really how you think about language itself.
Yeah, we've got history, we've got these mystical alphabets that supposedly channel divine energy, and some pretty surprising aha moments about dots and dashes.
It's a fascinating document. I think the key to starting this is to realize that the source treats language so differently than we do. For us, language is a tool. It's functional.
Right, pass the salt.
Exactly. I use it to order a coffee.
Yeah.
But this module argues that Biblical Hebrew isn't just a way to convey information. It's a container for culture, for theology, for an entire worldview.
So when you translate it, you're just getting a black and white photocopy of a Technicolor landscape.
That's a great way to put it. You get the shapes, but you miss all the depth, the texture, the shadows.
So let's jump right into the why. Because I can hear people asking, why can't I just read the English Bible? It's been translated by teams of brilliant scholars. Isn't that enough?
And look, it's enough to get the general idea. You'll understand the narrative. Noah built a boat. David fought a giant. But the source material makes this really compelling argument about accuracy and nuance.
It's like the target language, English, doesn't have the right operating system to run the source software.
That's exactly. And they give an example that it makes it so clear. It's one of the big ones. The Ten Commandments, Exodus 20.13.
Right. In English, we all know it as thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill. 4 words. Seems incredibly straightforward. No killing, period.
But that's not what it says.
Not really. In the original Hebrew, the phrase is lo terza, and the root word there, radza, is highly specific.
So it doesn't just mean to take a life.
No. It implies intentional, premeditated murder, unauthorized killing.
That is a massive distinction.
It changes the entire legal landscape. Think about it. If the commandment is just, thou shalt not kill, in that broad sense, you run into huge theological problems. What about a soldier in a war?
What about self-defense? Or an accidental death?
Right. If the word just means kill, those are all sins. You get tied up in knots trying to justify them. But la terza cuts right through that. It's a moral category. It's telling you that malicious, predatory taking of life is what is forbidden.
And the text contrasts this with other similar languages to prove the point, right? With the Ethiopian connection.
It does, and this is a great detail. It brings in Ge'ez, which is this ancient Semitic language, and Amharic. In Ge'ez, the term is aitikal. In Amharic, edgadal.
And those are more general.
Much more general. They're closer to the English don't kill. They could cover manslaughter, accidents, war casualties. The Hebrew is laser-focused, and that's just one word. Imagine that level of nuance everywhere.
It makes you wonder what else we've been, misinterpreting.
A lot, potentially.
Yeah.
And the source argues this problem bleeds into the New Testament as well.
Which is interesting because isn't the New Testament written in Greek?
It is, Koine Greek. But, and this is a crucial point from the text, the writers were culturally Hebraic. Paul, Peter, John, these guys grew up reciting the Psalms in Hebrew.
Their operating system was Hebraic, even if the interface was Greek.
That's a perfect analogy. The source calls it the fruit versus root dynamic. The Greek text is the fruit, but the root system it's drawing from is all Hebrew. To really get the New Testament, you have to dig down to that Hebrew soil.
Okay, so we've established it's useful for accuracy. That's the practical argument. But the source goes way beyond useful. It brings up this term, Lashon HaKodesh.
The Holy Tongue.
Yeah. And they aren't just being poetic. The text treats this as a theological fact. This is the language of Adam and Eve. It's the language God used to speak to Moses.
There's this really striking line in the introduction where the author asks, if it is God's will to reveal his message in ancient Hebrew, how can we even consider skipping its study out of laziness?
Ouch. Called out for being spiritually lazy.
It's a challenge. It points to this traditional belief that the world wasn't just described by Hebrew, it was created in Hebrew.
Created in it, like the language is the actual code.
Yes, that when the text says, and God said, he was using these specific sounds, these specific letters, to manifest reality. The letters themselves are the building blocks of the universe.
The source gives a great example with names. In English, a name is usually just a label.
It's a tag, it's arbitrary.
But in Hebrew, naming reveals the essence of the thing. They break down the name Adam.
This is a classic. The name Adam comes directly from the word Adamah.
which means
Ground, earth, soil.
So his name is literally connecting him to his origin story. He's the soil man.
The earthling, yeah. The name contains the mystery of his creation. If you just read Adam in English, you see a proper noun. You miss the entire theological statement baked into the word.
It's like in fantasy novels where knowing something's true name gives you power over it.
That's a very apt comparison. In this worldview, knowing the name means understanding its function, its nature.
Now, before we get too mystical, and we are definitely getting there with the alphabet, the text grounds this in history. Hebrew isn't an island. It has a family.
The Semitic family.
Yeah.
It's a huge group, something like 70 languages in this tree.
So who are the main cousins?
You've got Akkadian, the oldest written, one think, ancient Babylon, then Aramaic.
The lingua franca of the ancient world, right?
Exactly, the English of its day, and then, of course, Arabic. But what I found fascinating in this specific source is the emphasis on the Ethiopian connection.
Yes, they mention Ge'ez and Amharic a lot.
Right, as close cousins. And the reason they're all related comes down to the architecture of the language. They all share what's called a triliteral root system.
Okay, triliteral root system. Break that down for us.
It's actually really elegant. In English, the words write, book, author, and library sound completely different. You just have to memorize them.
No connection in the sound.
But in Semitic languages, those ideas would all be built from the same three-consonant root. Let's say KTV. That's the DNA for the concept of writing.
So KTV is the skeleton.
Exactly. And then you add vowels and prefixes to make different words. Katavi might be he wrote. Katavi might be letter. Katuvi could be written. They all share that KTV DNA. You learn one root, you unlock a whole field of meaning.
That is incredibly efficient.
And that's why the source calls Hebrew a gateway. If you learn ancient Hebrew, you have a massive head start on Aramaic, Arabic, or Ge'ez.
And maybe surprisingly, it's a gateway to the modern world, too.
You mean with modern Hebrew, spoken in Israel today?
Yes. The source points out that modern Hebrew, which was revived in the Zionist movement, isn't a new language. It's built on the ancient framework.
It's a totally unique event in history. No other dead language has been resurrected like that. Modern Hebrew was reconstructed using the bones of ancient Hebrew. So studying this ancient text actually unlocks a living culture.
Okay, here is where it gets really interesting for me, the alphabet.
The building blocks.
The source material spends so much time on this, and it's not just A is for apple. It gets cosmic.
It does. The text says the 22 consonants of the Hebrew alphabet aren't just ink on paper. They're channels for divine energy.
Channels for divine energy. That's a heavy claim for an alphabet.
Well, you have to go back to that idea of a creation. The tradition is that these letters existed before the physical universe. They are the tools God used. So when you look at an aleph or a bet, you're not just looking at a sound, you're looking at a spiritual principle.
Let's walk through a few because the descriptions are wild. Start with the first one, Aleph.
Okay, aleph, first letter, numerical value of 1. It represents the infinite God. But notice the sound.
It's silent.
Essentially, yeah, it's the sound of preparing to speak, the ineffable origin. But the shape is what the source focuses on. It's 2 points, an upper and a lower, connected by a diagonal line.
Like a slash with a dot above and a dot below.
Right, and the source interprets this. The upper point is spirit, the lower point is flesh. And the diagonal line is the soul that connects them, the human condition in a single character.
Wow. Okay, what about the next one? Bet.
Bet. It literally means house. Think about the progression. Aleph is oneness, God alone. Bet, the number 2, introduces duality, creator and creation. Bet is the house, the container, for God's presence in the world.
So Aleph is the abstract God, and Bet is where God lives.
Precisely.
I love the description of Gimel. The source says it looks like a rich man running.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gimel. The shape has this little leg extending forward. The tradition says it's a rich man running to give charity to the poor man, who is the next letter, Dalet.
So the letter itself encodes the moral obligation to give.
Exactly. The flow of benevolence. And then there's Mem.
Mem. That's water, Mem.
Right. Connected to wisdom. But the source highlights the number, 40.
40. That number is everywhere in the Bible.
And Mem is why. It represents a period of transformation. 40 days of the flood. 40 years in the desert, 40 days of embryonic development. It tells us that wisdom and change aren't instant. You have to go through the water.
Okay, one more. P.
Ah, P. It means mouth. And this one feels like a warning. It symbolizes the power of speech to create or destroy. The source quotes the Talmud. Do not say one thing with the mouth and another with the heart. Since letters created the world, your mouth, your P, has the power to shape reality. a dangerous tool.
And the whole journey ends with ta.
The final letter. It symbolizes truth and perfection, the destination. You start with Aleph, God, and you end with Ta, perfection. The whole story of existence in 22 characters.
It really makes you look at the text differently. It's not just words, it's a code.
It is.
Yeah.
But, and here's the practical hurdle, it's a code written without vowels.
Right. This is the mechanics section. I looked at the charts in the source, and I just thought, if it's only consonants, how on earth do you pronounce anything?
Imagine reading English like that. B-N-N. Is it banana, benign, bunyan?
So how did they do it?
Well, originally it was a purely oral tradition. You had to hear it to know it. But over time, they needed hints. The Force calls them quiescent letters. Letters like Aleph or Wa that started to double as vowel hints.
But that wasn't precise enough.
Not for preserving the tradition. So eventually, a group of scholars called the Masorets invented a system of dots and dashes called Nakud.
These are the little specks you see all around the letters.
Exactly. And the source makes a crucial point. They created this system to preserve the pronunciation without changing the sacred text. They couldn't add new letters, so they wrote around them, above, below, inside.
It's like invisible ink that tells you how to sing the song without touching the lyrics.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Whoa.
And within this system, you get these fascinating grammar rules.
Yeah.
Like the dagesh,
The dot in the belly of a letter, it means to pierce.
and it changes the sound. One type, the dagesh lene, hardens it. For certain letters, like bet, with a dot, it's a hard B sound. Without it, it's a soft V sound.
So the dot literally hardens the reality of the letter.
Precisely. The other type, dagesh forte, looks the same, but it doubles the consonant. It adds emphasis, weight.
And then there's the Shiva.
The two vertical dots, a half vowel, or sometimes silence. It creates the rhythm of the language.
But my absolute favorite weird rule was the patach furtive.
The furtive patash. It sounds like a secret agent.
It really does. The furtive patach strikes at midnight. What is that?
It's a rule that breaks the rules. Normally you read consonant, then vowel. But if a word ends in a guttural letter like chet or ayin, you pronounce the vowel before the consonant.
The example was the word for spirit or wind.
Right. It's written R-U-C-H. But because of this rule, you don't say ruch. You say ruach. The ah sound sneaks in before the final cheek. It smooths it out. It makes it more musical.
So when you put it all together, a language that's the DNA of creation, mystical letters, grammar that pierces reality, what does it all mean?
For me, the synthesis is that Hebrew is a body and soul language.
How so?
Think about the structure.
Hmm.
The consonants, the black ink on the page, they are the body. They are the vessel, stable, unchangeable.
Okay.
But the vowels, the dots, the breath, the ruach, they are the soul. You can't speak the consonants without breath. The text is dead on the page till you breathe the vowels into it.
So reading Hebrew is an act of resurrection.
Yes. You are combining the static body of tradition with the living breath of your soul to create meaning.
That is a powerful image. The reader isn't just a consumer of the text, you're a partner.
You're a partner in bringing it to life.
You know, I can't stop thinking about that letter, Pi, the mouth. If we accept the premise here that letters are the building blocks of reality, and we carry that same tool, speech, in our own mouths.
Then every time we speak, we are doing a mini act of creation.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, are we creating or destroying our own realities with the words we choose every day? If the world was built with words, maybe our personal worlds are too.
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it suggests that learning this holy tongue might be less about grammar and more about learning how to speak with intention.
So, to everyone listening, next time you see a verse from the Old Testament, maybe don't just see it as a sentence. See it as a code waiting to be deciphered. There's a whole universe hiding in the white space.
And it's definitely worth the effort to decode it.